Ben and Justine are going to come, and they're going to share their testimony. They have some things they want to share with us, and so come on up, guys, and pray for them. I know they're a little bit nervous, and they'll do great.
So I really do not like. I don't like public speaking. I don't want to get up here and share my testimony. I'm pretty ashamed of that. So when I share my testimony, it's really going to tell. It's not going to look good on me, and that's the part I don't like. But I just got to keep reminding myself it's not about me. It's all about Jesus and what He has done for me. So I accepted Christ when I was 9 or 10, and I realized that I was a sinner, and that the only way to be made right with God was Jesus' blood, was believing that what Jesus did for me would make me right with God. And I believed that, and I accepted Christ. But then as I grew through my teen years, I wasn't reading my Bible. I wasn't growing in my relationship with God. And what I really kind of lived my life, I thought, I've already accepted Christ into my heart. I'm saved. I'm going to heaven. What else do I really need to do? I mean, I can kind of go about my life living like I want, and that's pretty well what I did through my teens. And as I went through that, by the time I get into my 20s, now the way I'm living is kind of deep. My sin has gotten a good grip on it. And so as I go through my 20s, I don't look any different than the rest of the world. If you ask somebody, hey, has Ben a Christian? I don't know what they say. Maybe one day he is, maybe one day he isn't, by my language, by my actions. And I would go in and out. I'd start coming back to church. God was still working on me. He was convicting me of all the things that I was doing, and I'd ask God for forgiveness, but I couldn't break that stronghold. And I'd come to some Bible studies, and I'd really start. I'm gonna start living for God. This isn't the way I want to be. But a lot of times I'd take 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and it was a pattern. And as me and Justine got together, it was probably I was mid-20s. I was a pretty bad influence on Justine. I looked good on the outside, but the message I was sent, I was such a hypocrite. So we would go out and party Saturday night. I'd say, hey, let's go to church Sunday night. And I was just teaching others, including Justine, that the way I'm living's okay. It doesn't really matter if you sin. If you go to church and ask for forgiveness, yeah. So I would use God's grace as a license to sin and just to live how I wanted to. And I'm so ashamed of that. I really am. But so we got married, and we were expecting our first child, and so we were in the hospital, and we were new parents. Of course, I thought you just come into the hospital, you have your baby, you go home, at the end of the day, everything's happy. Well, it was a little stressful. It ended up being an emergency C-section, and I was really scared. I was really scared that Justine wasn't going to make it through it. And at the same time, right across the street, my nephew Jace, he was in the hospital, and he had a blood virus, turned into a stroke. He was 3 years old, I think. So it turned into had a stroke, and then from there, his kidneys started shutting down. and it was looking pretty bad. I really thought he was gonna die. And so we come home with, you know, a healthy baby. Just everything was kind of going slow motion a little bit, and I was thinking, you know, life isn't just going about your day and doing whatever you want. I mean, there's consequences, and we don't know what's going to happen in our life. And that was when, you know, I hate to say it took, you know, a life altering altercation to finally to wake me up. But as I can remember, we come home, and it was sometime that week I tried sharing the gospel with Justine on the couch, trying to, you know, realizing that I guess I just when you're younger, I know a lot of times you just don't think about the future and what things that could happen, and you don't realize what's truly important in life. And I felt like God was really pushing that on me there. And then it wasn't until probably another year or two that I confessed to God that I haven't been living for Him. I've been living for myself, and that I needed to get right with Him again and back into fellowship. So after Clayton was born, so he was a year or so after I surrendered my life to Christ, and I guess what I hate to think is that I used Christ's forgiveness as an excuse to live the way I wanted. But I also thought that, you know, once I accept Christ, that's the end. And that's not the end. That is only the beginning. Living for Christ is your life.
Okay. All right. So my story is completely different from Ben's, and I feel like although we are ashamed of our past, that we know that God has forgiven us for that, and that's what's most important. So I didn't grow up in church. My parents got divorced when I was really young, and neither one of them went to church. Both of my sets of grandparents went to church, and I would occasionally go, maybe Christmas, Easter, I had some friends that we would go to vacation Bible school with, but that was my only experience with church until I met Ben. So when I met Ben, I was not in a good place in my life. I'd gotten kicked out of my mom's house. I was living in my grandparents' basement. I was living for the next time for drinking. I was working so I could have paychecks so I could drink, and that's where I was at when I met Ben. I was in a very bad downward spiral of I'm not really sure what was next. But I met Ben, and we started dating in like July, and I remember in January he asked me if I wanted to go to church with him. And I didn't want to go because, like I said, I'd never been to church, and I didn't want to go. And I did because I really liked him, and I knew that was important to him. So I came, and we sat back there in the very back row, and I was so uncomfortable. I didn't like one single thing about it because it was new to me, and it was a foreign concept. But I kept coming back because, like I said, I really liked Ben, and I wanted to make him happy, and I will say I tried everything to get out of coming to church on Sundays, and the more I came, I'd say every Sunday I listened maybe a little bit more to what Pastor Will was saying, maybe let down my grudge that I had a little bit, and Then I started coming to Sunday school because Ben asked me to do that too, and I thought that was pretty terrible too because I knew nothing about what anybody was talking about. I remember Kitty was our teacher, and so I came to Sunday school, and I think that was when I started thinking about the things that I was reading or hearing, or just I feel like ultimately I didn't know it then, but that's when God started working in my heart. And so maybe we came to church pretty often then. But like Ben said, when we had Lauren, Jace was, the day we had Lauren, he got admitted to OSF. He'd already been in Graham for days before that. And like Ben said, things got scary for me when I had Lauren, and things were scary with Jace, and it was just such a low point in our lives. I felt like Ben and I felt guilty because we had this brand new healthy baby, and here was our brother and sister-in-law across the street with their child fighting for their life. And so we just felt kind of guilty that we had a healthy baby during this time. And we had gotten home from the hospital. I don't know, maybe we were there for a few days, and like Ben said, Jace had a stroke. And I remember this day vividly. John walked through our kitchen door, and he said, Jace has had a stroke, and we're not sure he's going to make it. And at that point, I watched Ben and John, pretty much plead with God to save Jace. And I had never seen people pray like that before for anything. So that was life-changing for me, that to watch them pray for him. And then, like Ben said, I don't know if it was that, like you said, that whole time was such a blur that I'm not really sure the timeline, but we were sitting on the couch and he asked me, are you a Christian? Do you believe in God, Justine? And I couldn't answer that yes. Deep in my heart, I wanted to, but I knew if I was being honest with myself, I couldn't say yes at that point. And he told me, he said, I was afraid that you were going to die and you would not be with me in eternity. And I thought, wow, I've never thought about that before. So probably a couple weeks later, Ben and I were new parents, and we were fighting about something. And I mean, it was ugly. We were saying some not so nice things to each other, and Lauren was screaming. We didn't know what she needed or what she wanted. And it was at that point where I thought, this is it. I need Jesus. I cannot keep living like this. I'm missing something. I need something in my life. So at that point, and I think I went in our bedroom to take a break from our arguing, our fighting, whatever we were fighting about, and asked God into my heart that night because I knew that was what I was missing. So Lauren was born in October, and then I kind of wrestled with myself until August, I believe, of coming forward to get baptized. At that point, we were still sitting in the back corner there, and I remember it was like one Sunday I would put my foot out into the aisle like I was going to go forward, and then I would step back in, and then I couldn't make that commitment. And then I remember I grabbed Wayne one Sunday, and I said, Wayne, I want to be baptized. And he said, well, have you accepted Jesus into your heart? And I said, yes, absolutely. So I got baptized that next August. But I know that, that's not an overnight transition of, accepting Christ and then you're living all for Him. Like Ben said, we knew that we had kids now and that we weren't just living our lives. We were affecting, Lauren. And I think that's when, we realized that we're doing this or we're not. You can't have one foot in, one foot out, so we had to really buckle down and decide that that's how we were going to live our lives. And we've seen God work in our lives so many ways since then. I think we were just share a couple of those times, and like Ben said, sometimes it was 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, type thing. Just some ways we've really seen God work in our lives. And this, I feel like this just becomes, an addition to your testimony. Lauren had just turned 2, and we've been trying to get pregnant for a while. And, well, first of all, when we had Lauren, we thought maybe we were just going to have 1 kid, and that was good. And that was, that's what we wanted. And then we started to pray that maybe we did want another child. And I always wanted to be a mom, always. That was just what I wanted to do. And so Lauren, actually she was not quite 2, and I got pregnant, and we were so excited. We had a big plan to tell our families at Christmas, and it was so exciting, and I felt like God had answered a prayer. And then a couple weeks later, I had a miscarriage, and I was so mad at God because, how could he do this to me, who had prayed for this child? And, God knew that how badly I wanted to be a mom, and I was mad. And Ben reminded me that this was not our plan, this was God's plan, and it was going to work out, however God wanted it to. So then I kind of changed my way that I was praying, and changed my attitude of, God, this is what you're going to make it, and whatever's going to happen, if Lauren's going to be our only child, then this is what you're doing. I handed it over to him, and 6 weeks later, we were pregnant with Clayton, and as you can see, he just turned 7. So we felt like that was a huge blessing.
I used to chew tobacco, and I tried to quit several times, and without God's power, I guess, and it's just human will. So I quit for a month or 2, but eventually I'd have that desire back, and I was praying that God would take that desire away. And that's what I've been doing with a lot of my sin. I have those desires. Sometimes those desires don't go away, but we can ask God to take that desire away. And it was the same with alcohol. We partied, on the weekends, and I can't say that we were, I don't know, I want to say we were functioning alcoholics or something. We go to work every day, and we could put on a pretty face in front of other people, but those desires, I guess, is what God has taken from me. I just don't have that anymore, and if it wasn't for God taking that away, I would still be in bondage to a lot of things.
And that was 10 years ago that he quit, so quit chewing. But anyways, also in our homeschooling journey, you're all well aware that we homeschool our kids, and that was something that was not on our radar at all, obviously, when we first had kids. And then Lauren got to be about 3, and we just realized that public school wasn't going to be for us. But we weren't obviously familiar with homeschooling. We had checked out a school in industry, but we couldn't afford it. It was a Christian school, but we weren't going to be able to afford it, and it was 40 minutes away. And so we kind of just started praying of, God, tell us what to do. And we had some, wonderful role models come right along beside us and help us through that journey. But I feel like without God, I had to quit my job at the time, and that was scary, that we were going to go down to 1 income, and we had to move. I feel like that was a huge way God has worked in our lives too. When we lived out in the country, we had maxed out our finances on our dream house, and we thought it was great, what we needed, what we wanted at the time. But then about 2 years into it, we realized that we were being foolish with our money. We were not being able to serve God in the way that we thought we should be. So I was mad at Ben at the time because I thought that was too big of a sacrifice to move. So we did. We took a leap of faith and looked at every single house that was on the market in Lewistown, which wasn't a whole lot, but we did, and we prayed and just, what are we going to do to get out of this? And a house, a foreclosure, the house that we live in now, was for auction, and actually John and Ben and I went to the courthouse to just to see, and we walked in right as they were bidding, and I mean literally they were in the auction, and Ben raised his hand and put in a bid, and that was it. We got this house, and I mean it was significantly less than we had set out to spend. And so we felt like, God provided for us in that, and I feel like we've seen so much fruit from that of, living in this house, and feel like we've been able to just fulfill more missions for God. And most recently, we feel like we're answering a calling. We just finished yesterday our final step to become foster parents. So we're really excited about that. We feel like God placed that on our hearts about 6 years ago, and we've just been praying for it and waiting for the right time to do that. We feel like that's now. So